everyone. My name is Eylul Dogruel. I'm an artist and educator, and apparently somewhere along the way, open source advocate. Today, what I'm going to talk about is a little bit maybe strange thing to bring here, because I think a lot of you, like this crowd out of anywhere that I could give this talk, are people who intuitively understand already what I'm talking about here. But what my hope is here is that this will give you verbalizing these things and actually trying to put them into some structure will help us argue whenever we are asked questions about it. Who owns the AI generated image? Obviously, when I talk about AI, I'm talking about neural network specifically, because AI can actually mean a lot of things. And I'm talking specifically in this context about AIs that generate images from keywords, although some of this can apply to other applications of it. Who owns the AI-generated image? This is a question I initially asked around 2019 to my students for the first time, and it's been part of the class since. At that time, this is before, ChatGPT and all of that, the biggest example I gave them was this Google research that took Google Street Map images, and then they trained an algorithm to spit out professional-looking landscape images. And obviously, the question I asked the students was, who owns this image? So is it the algorithm, is it the person who owns the algorithm? Is it public domain? Almost all of the students at the time answered the owner of the algorithm, by the way. At the time, this idea of public domain, at least for my students, weren't that well known. Then, of course, time changed, pandemic happened, and then Midjourney happened. And this is the work, this work was created by Jason Allen. Well, not created, it was created by Midjourney, by using keywords submitted by Jason Allen. He actually tried to copyright this and put the process forward. I think the final decision was that it wasn't copyrighted. So again, the question is, who owns this? Is it the company? Is it the public domain? But by the time we get there, suddenly we have a lot more questions. Is it the artist? Is it the person who supplied the keywords? Is it the artist whose information was used, images were used to train the data? Does the answer change if the artists were paid? Does the answer change if the training data was only public domain? Allegedly. But, who owns the AI-generated image? So this became a very important question that became now the main topic. It became mainstream, that conversation. But to understand this a bit further, I'm going to make a few changes to this question. First of all, you will understand why I'm going to replace image by photo, but it doesn't matter really. And I'm going to replace AI with monkey. I am actually surprised. Cory Doctorow talked about this about a month or so ago, and now newspapers are finally catching up. I'm surprised it took this long for people to realize this parallel. It's 2011, and David Slater, a wildlife photographer, is taking pictures in Indonesia at a forest, working with these celeb-crested macaques. And he's interacting with these animals, he's photographing them, and at some point, one of the animals grabbed a camera, presses a button, takes a selfie, monkey selfie. So, all fine and good. He comes back, and this, it's a fun, positive story. So it is picked up by news sources, and, he licenses this photograph to a few places. Then, TechDirt, I think especially Wikimedia, takes this image and puts it into their database as public domain because it's been taken by the monkey, as I remind my students that anytime that they take a photograph, whoever presses the button, so maybe you shouldn't be using your friend as a tripod, which they do sometimes. So I have to warn them to not do that. This whole thing resulted in a huge conversation and a huge trial. Is it public domain? Is it, is it belonging to the photographer? And then at some point, PETA also got involved. We are not going to talk about that. Anyway, the bottom line is, who owns this image? Is it the photographer or is it the public domain? The law kind of is sitting at public domain because, I mean, monkeys are not a legal entity. It cannot own an image, so it falls into public domain. But the problem is, the photographer has the artistic intent. That's the argument of the photographer. They are the ones who brought equipment. That part doesn't matter really, but the fact that they had the artistic intent and guided, and there is actually a kind of a precedent of at least ownership. The moment we start talking about performance art, interactive art, where the audience is interacting with the art piece, or the art piece literally is a series of instructions for any performer to perform, then you have that problem of who owns, you have this example of gray area. In some cases, it is being copyrighted. In other cases, they are not. Who owns the color? This is one of my own work. This was shown in the International Symposium of Electronic Arts way back in 2015. And that was kind of a similar question I was asking. This is the color that's really hard to see on this one is that it's a spectrum of color, and there is one light that is blinking. And the reason this is blinking is that that particular hue is the hue of the International Klein blue. And the number refers to 63, 471. It's the envelope solo that was submitted by Yves Klein. Yves Klein, for context, is a contemporary artist who's known for especially performance art and, well, this. And he never patented it, but the moment you think about, like, you cannot talk about International Klein blue, this particular hue of color, in a painting context or in a performance art context without referring to Yves Klein, really. So again, this problem appears of, on one hand, how can a color become almost like the ownership of an artist? And what is the limit of that artistic intent? Where do we stop? Or like, what is going on here? Yes, I know, Vanta Black, Anish Kapoor, I have only 20 minutes. So this is the work as, the digital format of it. And what the argument I made was copyright is an error to root around. I didn't know at the time, actually, Nina Pillay, a comic artist, who's known for her animation videos, has also called copyright and brain damage. I prefer to, this is what I came up with. But the idea is same. Copyright treats ideas as immutable goods. So as products that you can trade, sell, own, whatever. The problem with this is twofold. One, ideas are not goods. When you give an idea, you can still have it. It's not like it's a limited resource. Like, it's not an object that you can give and take, and you keep the idea. The second problem is ideas are not immutable. And this goes both ways. First of all, ideas aren't created in a vacuum. So the idea, when you are giving ownership of an idea to a person, you kind of ignoring a little bit everything that came before it. And I don't mean just the ideas that inspired it literally, but the culture that idea was developed in, the culture, the community it was developed in, all of these things matter. Similarly, ideas evolve in dialogues. If you think about things that are not copyrighted, so things like memes, fan works, they tend to exist as a whole of multitude of options, multitude of versions in a community. But the moment we try to copyright an idea, there is one official version of it, and we are kind of stuck there. The third problem with that is the opportunity loss of idea generation, because other ideas that could be inspired from that idea or worked onto that idea is now lost or delayed because of that ownership. And we can see how bad this is when we look at the example of open hardware, where we have where a consensus of ignoring ownership resulted in such a rapid development in the early days of the technology. So it is there. And the problem is that the more communication we have, the more internet we have, the more instant the communications, the more we can have communication with multiple people, that opportunity loss increases. In 1800s, maybe 5 years of delay on being able to use something wasn't a problem because it took 5 years for it to be even seen by 100 people. Now, 5 years almost makes an idea obsolete. So, that there is a lot more ideas that could have been generated in that time span that is no longer being developed. Yeah, then, okay, copyright is horrible, let's remove this, except, there is a reason why it exists, and that we need to support the generation of ideas. I pressed the wrong button. Okay. So the problem, I'm going to use to explain what we are talking about here. I'm going to use an economics term. For context, I'm not an economist. I'm an artist. I happen to be daughter of two economists, but that doesn't, all mistakes are mine. Now, the copyright is not a natural state of things. It is an artificial construct. And it is an artificial construct that was generated to internalize a positive externality. Now, what is an externality? An externality is anytime you produce something, there can be a hidden cost or benefit. That cost or benefit is not visible to the person producing it, so it doesn't by default go into it skews that calculation, the decision-making that you make when you are selling a product or buying a product. A very classic example of this is environmental damage. A cheaper way to do something might actually have a hidden cost of environmental damage. We internalize that externality by putting policies that support green options or whatnot. Idea generation is an externality because once an idea is generated, it benefits everybody. But as individuals, it costs time and effort to create it. So from an economics perspective, it makes more sense in terms of resource management and time management to ignore, wait until somebody else creates the idea and then to apply it from a pure economics perspective. Hence, this is an externality. So what copyright and in general, the idea of owning an idea does is that it gives a temporary monopoly of an idea to an individual to incentivize the idea generation. Who owns the AI-generated image? Maybe the question should be different. If owning an idea is an artificial construct, so maybe what we should ask in the absence of being able to answer that question is, does AI encourage generation of creativity? Does it inspire idea generation? Or does it discourage it as it won't be heard on the noise? That's the first part of that question. Does it support the artistic intent? What I mean by that is the outcome a random or common result of a trend? Or is it what the artist actually is trying to convey? Does it allow the artist to control the outcome, not in terms of just the content and its ideas, the speech behind it, the text behind it, but also stylistically? Or does it limit its creator in that way? And I think we know the answer to both of these questions in the terms of the AI. Then, of course, come the question of what other technologies can we extend this question to? So we know that some communities like Mastodon seems to actually allow flourishing of artists, and others makes them stressed and actually discouraged toward the end. Some social media platforms started as good communities for artists then became worse and worse over time. The moment we start asking these two questions, in the case of social media, the first one, suddenly we understand why that's the case. Or in terms of our own tools, like, why is there an issue with work that has the software that has ready-made solutions, like the way Instagram, for example, had? Why is something like Darktable that allows you to control all of the details better and works better for an artist, even if it looks on the surface more clunky? This is why. But then again, I'm not saying that open source is just always getting this right and closed source software always gets this wrong. I think this is a very good benchmark, very good test anytime that we are thinking about our projects and what impact it has on our community, on our audience. And that was my talk.
Thank you. So, are there any questions? There's one question over there.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm a musician, and as much as I hate that thought, I think that the generative neural networks situation is kind of a repeat of romplers from like the 80s and 90s. There were musical instruments created, keyboards that could play pre-created sounds, and many of the classic songs from 70s, 80s, 90s are using stock presets from these keyboards. And to some extent, one could say that what artists making a music on such a keyboard where all the sounds are pre-made is really just taking Lego blocks and putting them together into something new. And this gives me a thought that maybe this is a bit similar, where the machine learning model is kind of the box of Lego blocks, and the user kind of takes what they want from this box and put it into something new. So I don't like this thought because I'm kind of against generative AI, but it makes me think that maybe it's similar. I wonder what your thought about this is.
Okay, I didn't know exactly that there was literally devices that came with pre-samples, so that's a new knowledge to me. I am not sure that is the case, because the way that currently, I think the most recent ChatGPT change, I don't use it myself. I've seen people that I talk with use it. You give it few keywords and it just gives out something. And yes, you can try to say, do it in a certain style or try to do it like this medium. But what comes out actually is pretty average. So you cannot really get it away from what is existing a lot on the internet. And you will see that anytime, try to get it to draw anything that is actually not, you haven't seen a lot image stuff, see what happens. So that's why I said, does it allow the artistic intent? Maybe one day someone will come with a tool that does, but right now it really doesn't. At least the limitation I put to this question, keywords, algorithms that are generating from keywords specific out images. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. One thought that came to mind is a good tool is not limiting the user. So you can do stupid things, quote unquote, but that also can lead to incredible things.
Exactly.
And the models are by definition average at best. Thank you.
They fill in the blanks, and they fill in blanks in very predictable ways because that's what they've been trained to doing. Any other? But that was a very good question. And I know that music is also affected in a very different way from AI generation. So.
Thank you. Maybe we can get the next speaker already on stage. So, and then we, in between, maybe can ask a last question. Lasse, there was one over here in front.
Thank you for the talk. it appears that in the programming space, we have decided that AI-generated code is actually copyrightable, but images, I think, aren't.
Yeah, I can hear you.
What do you think about that? So in the programming space, generated code is copyrightable at the moment.
Okay, in the programming space it is, yeah, okay, I didn't know that. I know that in art case, there's been multiple instances.
Not completely.
Okay, oh dear.
There has to be a requirement that a human has been involved and altered the AI-generated output. And how people use them is also quite different, because people end up like prompting it to refactor the code, and then the human hasn't actually touched the code. So it's all up in the air. What are the legal implications of using AI-generated things in a project, as far as I understand it?
But I'm assuming that you had a question that was based on that fact. Like, was there something you want to elaborate, or?
Just why would it be different in different domains?
Well, I mean, it kind of ties into this problem that art, it's an artificial construct. And as such, these questions make no sense. That's why we keep landing on gray areas. But very good question. Yeah, why shouldn't it be different? It shouldn't be, but except it is.
Okay, thank you.